Okay, so this is a lathe chess piece set. So everybody's got to pick one to do. Okay, and I don't really care which one you pick, but don't everybody pick a pawn. Okay, I'll probably pause the video and go around the room and have everybody pick one different here in a minute. But it's pretty popular to actually make chess sets on a lathe. So there's somebody that did a huge write-up on making them out of wood on a wood lathe. Okay, which is very similar to what we do, except you hold a knife over a bar and you just drag it across it. I've got a lathe at home, a wood lathe, and you use your hand. It's a very, very dangerous machine compared to the one we have. But this guy made the whole thing on there. Okay, but it's this kind of the same idea. It spins, and you cut them off. So one thing I liked about in here is, he talked about how to make the horse out of it and so forth. So you make it round, and then you do some cutting afterwards. And you don't have to do all that. The idea is we're going to make the round pieces of it, okay? So the name of them, there's a pawn, the rook, okay? The knight is the horse, bishop, and the queen and king are very similar, okay? The only real difference is the queen doesn't have a cross on top of it. Otherwise, at least in this example, they're very similar. There's a lot of ways to do it, but that's the way he did it, and that's kind of the way we're going to probably do it to kind of knock it through. So he had a little image here. This is a template. So when you're doing woodworking, you're actually holding that knife with your hand and trying to match it up. So he gave out a template to kind of use. So we're going to trace that. And the software I like using for tracing things, as most of you know, is Inventor. So I put that JPEG in Canvas, and we're going to bring it into Inventor and trace it. Now, he did 2 of them at a time, okay, because of course you need 2 sets. So just do half of it, okay? And then we're going to make sure there's however much you need, put 1.5 inches on the back side of it to shove it in the chuck and to get off the cut off blade and everything in there nice, okay? So there's going to be 1.5 inches of waste, that's all right, okay? We're going to make it out of 6061 aluminum. I think because you can actually buff that and make it super shiny and paint it and everything else, so it would look really actually pretty cool, I think. Okay, so that's that one. This is the template. So let's go. There's a lot of things here, so I don't. It's similar to lesson 5B that we did a while back that we imported a SolidWorks part into. We're going to import an Inventor part into it, and run that. You got to use several tools. There's tool 1, 3, and 5. Make sure you rename them to the right names so that it would work on our CNCs. You have to download the files again. These are remember the control, and this is the LMD because it's lathe instead of mill. So you got to download these 2 files and put them in the right place. Same thing with the post when you write the G code. So there's quite a bit of stuff going on here. These screen setups are a little bit dated. I'll go through them. I'm going to try to get all this stuff updated. I didn't get a chance to get it all updated, but most of it is correct in here, okay? So it used to be just a 1-piece project, and I kind of updated this semester to 2. So let's draw this thing first. All right, so right-click on this image right here and put Save Image As. I assume you're using Chrome. Okay, so save image as and save it to your U drive. Okay, under CAD or Sim92. Okay, we'll do this part together. Hopefully it'll go good. We'll put it in 2021. Okay, I saved it over there, and then make sure you open up Inventor if you didn't already. Okay, I don't think I have it open. Yes, I do. Good. You can see I tried one already, so hopefully it goes good. All right, then I'll just open up a regular part. We're not going to make a project because we're only going to make one part. Back on. Okay, so you have to pick which one you want to do. They're labeled down here by name. Okay, if you do the pawn, you get 5 points off for doing something lame. So you have to do the harder ones. Mean guy I am. All right, so we right-clicked on that where we got Inventor opened up. So let's create a new sketch now, okay? So we're going to draw the sketch, and then we're going to scale it to the right size. So if any of you guys that were in my CAD 60 class, we did the same thing with the car. I know we only did it once or twice, so it's hard to remember, but we're going to do it again. So start 2D sketch, XY plane. Okay. And then we're going to bring that image in here. So there's the image right there. Just pick image, and then go get it from wherever what you place it should be on your U drive. Make sure it's on your U drive or it will disappear. Okay, I saved mine on Sim92. So there's the chess pieces, so I'm going to open that. And just put it up here somewhere in nowhere land. We'll locate it later. Okay. Okay, now they're upside down, of course. So let's rotate this thing. So when the way you select an image like this, you select the edge of it. I think it's still selected. So I'm gonna pick the rotate button here, right there. Okay, and I'm gonna pick this point right here. Okay, so pick like the bottom left to rotate this thing around, and then the angle is 180. And nothing happened. I guess I didn't have it selected. Let's try again. Rotate. There, I got it selected evidently. Center point right there. Maybe I didn't pick the center point. Now it's working 180. Okay, so you got to select the object, select the center point, and then type in the angle, and then type apply, and done. Okay, so now it's at least at the right angle. Now I'm going to pick on it again. I don't like where it's at. When you get the 4 arrows, it means you can move it. I'm kind of trying to get it there. So I'm getting 4 arrows and trying to move it. And sometimes they don't show up till you hold the button down, okay? The four-sided arrow thing. When you get that, you can move it. So I'm moving it away from the origin because I'm going to put it on that origin later. Okay. Let everybody catch up. Okay, so now let's locate this thing right at 0 on that corner. Well, it's not really right. Because we gotta draw a line in there. Let's see here. So it's a little tricky, I guess. I don't know if maybe we should crop this image before we bring it in. Let's try it without cropping it and see if we can get it done. So, if you got one in the middle here, then you're gonna have to draw 2 lines. Mine's up at the top, so I'm gonna draw 1 line across here. Okay, so we're gonna assume we've got 1 inch, 1 inch rod to deal with. Okay, so we want the biggest part to be 1/2 inch tall. Okay, this is only half of it, right? This is a half profile of the piece you're making. Okay, so the biggest part needs to be 1/2 inch. So say I was doing this, I guess that's the bishop there. I never get my names right. So I'm going to do the best I can, put a straight line from the edge of this. Well, before we do that, we should do a rectangle, I guess, on the image. So pick rectangle and make sure it gets green dot on the one corner and green dot to the other corner. Okay, and that locks, gives us a real size of that. Okay. And then we pick a line and try to get basically the top and the bottom of this piece. And then we're going to use that to scale it. Okay. So I've only got 1, so mine's easy because it goes all the way to here. But so I'm going to pick like right there and go all the way across. Now, if you got 2 to size it because you don't have a top line, then draw 2 of them. Okay. I hope this works for everybody. All right, so we've got that done. All right, now I know this distance is a 1/2 inch. Okay, so I'm gonna basically put a dimension there, 1/2 inch, and everything should scale up. Now, if you've got, say yours is a bishop, and you've got 2 lines across here, okay, you're going to dimension that 1/2 inch. Okay, so I go to dimension. I'm gonna pick on those 2 lines. It's hard to, it is picking it. It's barely showing up, but I think it got it finally. And I'm gonna put it over here on the left. Okay. My left mouse, I'm going to type in 0.5 because it's half the 1 inch. Okay, and it scaled it for me, which is great. Okay, hopefully yours does the same with the 2 in the middle. All right, so now we need to locate it. I don't know if we need to locate it at this point or locate it in a little bit. Probably at this point to 0. It's a little tricky though because we got to have 1.5 inches. I think we should draw it in space and look. Well, then sometimes that messes it up though. Okay, so let's locate our 0 point, okay? And we'll just add something to the back of it. And we might have to There's no easy answer there. The problem is we need 1.5 inches of total room behind here, okay? So I guess let's draw a line from roughly this spot here, 1.5 inches long, okay? So pick a line there and hold it right above where your piece is going to get cut off. See where mine's going to get cut off there? So I'm going to hold a line right up there. And then I'm going to go straight over to the left and type 1.5, okay? And then I'm going to go straight down to where it's parallel with that one, okay? And it should find it, Okay, if you go over to it and hover by it and move your left, you can see how they're getting a hidden line there. Okay, so it should be 1/2 inch really. So straight down 1/2 inch, okay? All right. And then I'm going to go back to this line here, all right? Okay, and that way I've got 1.5 inches extra of metal that's going to eventually going to be inside the chuck. Okay, now this should all be locked to this, I think. So I'm going to try, once you get that box drawn, so it's 1.5 inches from where you think it's going to start, over on a line. Now I'm going to basically try to lock this point here where the 0 is. Okay, so this is what would be considered the part reference 0 on the machine. Okay, that means inside the chuck when you're doing your when it's writing the G code, which if you haven't had CNC class, that just means where the 0 is for you write it. So you go X and Z, or Z and X. Okay. But the part reference 0 is at this corner. So we want to reference this to 0 so that way we can bring it into Mastercam, it's right and we don't have to move it. You could move it in Mastercam, it wouldn't be no big deal, but I want to try it the best way possible. So there's a constraint called coincident. So I'm going to pick that coincident constraint, and I'm going to pick right here on the corner, and then I'm going to pick down here on the origin, and I'm going to pray it actually works. I got pretty lucky because I didn't try that one before class. Okay, so I picked on the corner that I drew and down here on the origin and moved everything. So now my part reference 0 is on 0, and I won't have to move it in Mastercam. Okay, now you could draw the whole thing up there and give yourself a center point line to go across, and it would actually all work fine too. You just have to move it in Mastercam. It's be a little tricky, but especially since it's in. Okay, so that worked pretty good for the top one, but some students have them in the middle and that's not working. So I'm going to show you what to do if you have one in the middle. So say I have one in the middle there. I've got a line that is, I'm just going to throw this in here, not very accurately, but hopefully yours is better. So say I did the bishop, okay, and I did up there. And that's probably not tall enough, but anyway, right? Say I had those two lines already in there, and they were 1/2 inch. I think we dimensioned them a while ago, right? I'm not going to redimension them because it mess up everything else. But if you have like the bishop and it's up there, now you draw a line from the end of your bishop over to here, 1.5 inches, okay, 1.5. So just ignore mine up top, and then I go down. It's 441, but you would go 0.5, 441. So you'd go 0.5 there because mine's a little messed up because I already scaled the other one, right? And then I go back over here and hit this, okay? Now, when I do a move on that one, it's probably just going to move those lines and nothing else. Let's see. So I go coincident, and I pick on this edge, and I pick down here, and it actually moved on mine. But if it doesn't move, what you can do is add some dimensions to force it to. So you had to put a dimension from this edge to this edge and tell it whatever it is, let it be, okay? And from these two array dimensions together height-wise. So from this one to the top here, and put it over here, and whatever it is, let it be, okay? And then do the coincident, and then it should lock it, go down with it, okay? Because at that point, these lines shouldn't go anywhere. This one's locked to here, this one's locked to here, this one down here is locked to that one. So they're all tied together, so they can't really move, okay? I'm going to undo all that stuff because I don't really want that in there, right? Put it back down there. Okay, so now we got to trace half this thing. Okay, and you can always delete a line or two if these things get in the way later, because you don't need them anymore. Okay, but we're going to basically go back to the origin. So I don't know what the best way to trace it. And so one thing when you're doing your tooling, I want to forewarn you, the tools are shaped like this. There's a line there and there's a line here, okay? And the angle between those two lines is 55 degrees. That's how the tool works. Okay? So you can't have something sharper than that. Okay? So if you look at this thing, let's just show you what's going to happen on this one. If I move these two lines, I think I can do it. See, I just drew myself a little tool, basically. So that one, you know, it's going to have a hard, it's going to work, but it's going to have a hard time getting in there. Okay? But it actually is going to work to get into almost all these. But like right there, it cannot make that little curve here. That's impossible. So I have to deal with a second tool. So this is a tool going to the left, right? But I'd have to make it the tool going to the right to get that little lip there, because it will not fit in there. See how there's no way it can't go down this without crashing over the top, and the machine takes care of that. It won't do that part. You have to basically go back at it again, and I'll show you that. But if you have a really crazy one, it might be a problem that it can't get at it from either way. This one's going like this one here on the Bishop. You might want to make this a little bit bigger, because see, it's going to have a hard time getting in this side, and then the other tool is the opposite of this. It's just a mirror image of that. It can't get in there either. It's going to run into that. So make the space when you're drawing it bigger, okay? The King's big enough that it mostly works. In fact, it does work if I go from both sides. But this Bishop, this little spot in here is going to be a little tight, okay? That's probably the only one. The rest of them probably are okay. On the, oh, I think this is a knight, right? It's kind of got the same problem going on a little. Well, it's coming from this side, it ought to be fine. Right down here and here, this dip, don't make this dip so big, because it's not going, so it would cheat. When you're tracing this thing, go a little bit higher, okay? Because otherwise that tool is going to whack it out. And you can make a tool of your own and check it. It's only a 55 degree. One line goes straight vertical, one line goes at an angle of 55 degrees, and then just move it and check it, you know, when you get done. And, you know, it'll still work. It just won't cut that low in there. So, and this one's going to have, this one probably will work. If I check tool from the other side, I think it would fit in there and go up there. And same thing around here. I think this one would work pretty good. You're going to have to use the other side of tool a lot. Wait, I'm sorry, I'm doing this one over here. Yeah, so it goes up there, and then this one, right in this area, if you're doing the, I don't know, whatever the one this one is. I'm not very good with my names on my chessboards. So this little area right here, you might want to make it a little bit bigger. I'd say everywhere else it's fine. On the pawn, it's all pretty good. I think you'll probably be fine on it. Not much going on with the pawn there. Okay. All right, so now we're going to trace it. I'm going to leave that up there for time being. All right, so now we're tracing. I think the arc probably works the best on most, because almost every one of these is an arc. It's not really a straight line anywhere on this thing, maybe on the top. So right where the, so I'm doing the queen here. There's the king, because it's got a cross there. So, so if you're doing the king, then just if you're doing the king, just it's the same thing as the queen, except it's got a cross added to it, right? They add it to it. Just add a cross to the top of it, okay, on this one. So if you're doing the king, add a cross right up here on the top of it, just like that. Okay, just make it a little bit bigger with the cross, so you don't have it going on the wrong side. All the rest are on the right side anyway. Okay, all right, so I'm gonna do a king. So anyway, I'm gonna draw a straight line cross on there first. I don't know, I'll start over here. I'll go straight up to about right there, go to the left, make my cross. Okay. Now the cross is going to be a problem, because I'm gonna end up putting a chamfer in it, because I know it's going to crash the tool. Okay. So I'm gonna go down to here, go up to here, and also I'm doing vertical and horizontal lines as I'm going. I'm making sure they're straight. Okay, don't try to do something crazy there. You could do angles too, I guess. It wouldn't matter. Later, I'm going to add a chamfer right there. Now, there's a little trick in Inventor. If you want to do a curve right after a line, you can hold down on the point you were at, and it might go the right way. It might not either, but it did on mine, so I'm going to go with it. Okay, I don't really like the radius of that though. Now I'm going to go 3-point once and do it after that. So try to make sure they're always tangent. So the arcs always got to be tangent. If you don't make them tangent, you'll have a bump there, unless you want the bump there, but most likely you don't. So doing a bunch of 3 points. So now, like, these two aren't tangent, so I'm going to pick the tangent constraint and force these two to be tangent. Okay. So whenever you have two arcs, make sure that all the arcs, when they're touching, that they're tangent across there. And that might make one look stupid. You might have to redo it, but that's part of the deal. It doesn't have to follow exactly. It's yours, so do it however you want. Okay, just make sure it doesn't look stupid. Right. And it will try to snap to tangent sometimes. See that little tangent symbol fall? If that falls up, then you're good. If you don't get the tangent symbol automatically, then force it. I can't see it because that thing keeps showing up in the way there it was. So, So you're just kind of putting the arcs in where they're making a change is kind of the idea. And again, making them tangent everywhere you can. So I'm going to pause the video while I finish this. Get back up and finish it up. Way better than mine.
I'm trying to get these little guys here. It's like, definitely switch to the left and right for sure.
You're making it pretty sweet. I gotta say, it looks a lot better than mine does. Hopefully this good guy. Guys, I'm going to finish this out and save it just to make sure this thing doesn't crash. So if you want to watch for just a second, I'm not sure it'll work perfect, but I'll give it a shot here. And then you can I'll give you a few more minutes after I do that. Because I'm on a laptop on a server recording it. And who knows if it'll actually stay forever. We're getting there, little by little. Right in the middle there, shut it off. Okay, so let's try to hover one. So hit the ball once again. And just hover over that area a little bit. Don't move your mouse. It's not even giving me the option. I might click once over that area. I don't think there's one in there. So for some reason it doesn't think it's closed. So go back in your sketch. And zoom out. Far left. And get rid of this one. And just make it. Hopefully my try to mix it. Yep. It just didn't figure it out. Yeah, that one too. And that, you know, you just need to jack closer to this. It would when you cut the horse head into it probably. It doesn't yet, but the one in their little paperwork actually looks pretty good when it's done with it. It is probably the hardest part. That machining on this thing should go, well, it depends if the tools keep crashing, but it should go pretty good. I wonder why we can fix that a little bit too. All right, guys, try to finish it up and we'll get on going to the machine part. And then you can always come back and pick up the sketch and make another one if you want to. Get the whole stack. You're not gonna, you might have to change the sketch.
I'm trying to figure out what to add to this.
Most of us had to delete the line to the right of the, everybody so far has to delete the line to the right of the sketch. You know how you see sketch stuff. Zoom out.
honestly, I can always, I was. Here, I had to do a bunch of billets, try to get those curves, and then I had to extend the curves of things. I needed to do a lot of curves with that. I know.
Did everyone else get their revolve? Roll, did you have a successful idea, buddy?
Yeah.
Relax.
No, but you can go on, I just try. I kind of.
Okay, you're real close.
Yeah, it's a beat.
Okay.
I have to remember what we're doing next. Okay. Okay, I don't think I recorded that, so I'm gonna say it one more time. So make sure you at this point, make sure your planes you drop this down and put in the plus Z plus or plus X plus Z, and you move your construction and tool plane to here, and I went back to Toolpath, and I went back to the project itself, and I right clicked on these two files, and I saved them to this directory. Okay. All right, so now let's go ahead and load those up. So we go over to machine, okay, drop down the lathe and manage list, and lo and behold, it actually showed up. Yay, mine it did anyway. So there's PLT 3000. That's our little lathe we have in the back of the room. Click add and hit OK. So that way it'll actually be using the right machine. Okay. And then when we get that done, you got to drop the lathe down and pick it right below the default. It'll be there now. Okay, so you pick it. So now it's using the right programming and everything for that machine. Okay, which is written by Mastercam for that machine. Okay, so we've got that in there. Now the next thing we want to do. Okay, all right. So now we're going to set up our stock setup. Okay, just like we typically would. And this is, like I said, is very similar to 5B. Not exactly like it, but pretty close. Okay, so this thing's pretty simple to use. Let's do our tool settings first because it's easier. Okay, let's just call this 12. I think that's what lab this is. You could leave it 0, wouldn't make any difference. So we want to assign tool numbers sequentially, warn duplicate tool numbers. I think leave the rest of that alone, but change the sequence number to 1, 1 on the start, 1 increments of 1 for our programs with not such high end numbers. For the material down here, hit select, lathe current, switch that over to lathe library, and switch it over to aluminum 6061, like we typically do, okay? So most of these we've been doing on everything. Files, let's double check the files, make sure the right ones are in there. Yep, there they are. Our LMD is a 3000, our control is 3000, our post is wrong, but later on we'll pick that when we write the post, you can pick it, okay? You just have to right click and save that to U drive or wherever, and then make sure you pick that file when you write your G code. Okay, now stock setup. Okay, so this one's not too bad. So this first one is the actual tube. Okay, so we measured how big it was a while ago, and it says in my notes it's supposed to be 3/4 of an inch in the spindle. So we're going to set that up first, and then we'll set up the chuck jaws. And this is more just for looks. And so if it runs into it, it'll tell you. I don't think we do too much else. Hit the properties button up here in stock, and we're going to adjust the size of the piece of metal we're messing with here. Okay, so I'm trying to remember all this. So we do want to have margins. That gives us a little bit extra on the outside of it. I don't know. I think I said 50,000, so 0.5 on the not the old E. That's 0. We don't have any, you buy metal in exact diameter. Typically, this is a 1-inch diameter, so we're gonna leave that alone. But we want a little bit on the right. Put 50 thousandths on the right. 50 thousandths on the. There is none on the left either because it's shoved into machines. So leave that at 0. This just means they're not going to cut it, but you can leave that at 0 too, since we're saying we're using exact sizes, and it'll probably look a little cleaner. Let's leave it at 0 so it doesn't crash. Change my mind. Okay. And then there won't be anything on the outside. Okay, then we got the OD of this thing. It's 1-inch OD. The length of it is whatever that number is you measured a while ago. Mine was 4.421. That's what we measured in Master and Inventor. The axis is plus Z, I think. Okay. Yeah, they're showing up. Okay. Okay, plus Z. I think that's everything. We got the sizes, plus Z. Not going to do any margins on it. So just hit check mark it. So I just put that's basically setting up our rough stock, just like we did with the mill, but it's with a round piece of metal. Okay. Now we got to set up the jaws so they show up. So hit properties on this. And I think the only thing we're going to do on this is the Z is 0.75 deep. Okay. So that means the piece of metal is going to be shoved into chuck 0.75, and the 0 is on the edge of it. None of this, you could change this. It might crash in there if it doesn't match exactly. It'll say it's going to crash, but on our case, it's okay. Diameter. Okay, at this point, I am going to look and see what that says, so I don't want to mess that up. So I did give an example of these screenshots. These screenshots aren't perfect. I was going to go through and update them afterwards, but at least they are close. So that one, I did 1 inch there and 0.75. Okay, so that we do want 1 inch there. I'm going to check this as well too. Okay. Okay, so it needs to be 1 inch on the diameter. Okay, so diameter is 1 inch and the Z is 0.75. Let's hit check mark to see what it looks like. Move it out of the way. Yep, it looks real good. So about 3/4. This is 1.5 inches roughly, and 3/4 of it it's inside the chuck. Okay. And the rest of it's going to be LB machine. Hit check mark. Okay, so this is a chuck on our machine. It's clamped to the piece of metal. It's going to spin it, okay? All right, I think we're ready to cut this. Okay, so we're going to cut with a tool that's going this way first, rough and finished, and then we'll go the other way, and then we'll cut the thing off, okay? I think we might need to add a line to this thing here later so we have a cutoff point. We'll see if we need that or not. All right, so let's go ahead and try our first machining on it. So we're going to right click in here and do the quick one. You could pick rough, but there's a quick one here the book used, and I thought that was a neat idea, so I'm going to use it. So I right click, lathe, Toolpath. Way down here, halfway down, there's a quick button, 3/4 of the way down, quick rough. Okay, pick that. Okay. Now I'm going to pick on the beginning of my starting point here, and lo and behold, it's not picking it. Okay, so we're going to go back to the other plan and create that surface on here. Okay, I thought it would pick it, but it's not. I think on the newer version it will on 22. That's where I tried. So I'm going to hit OK and just let that disappear. If yours shows up, delete it. All right, so we need to create our lines around here. So we're going to go back to that little statement I made earlier. So go to your wireframe, okay, tab, and there's one over here that says turn profile. Just pick that, okay, and hit Control A for everything basically. And then hit end selection, and then hit the green button. Okay, now we got a top turn profile on this thing to pick, okay? Is there any of that we don't want? I think it's all fine. So let's try it again now. All right, so right click. Okay, so now we're going to try to do that again. So I right clicked over here and I'm going to go down here to lathe Toolpath, and I'm going to find quick and quick rough. And I want to pick towards the right side of this, if I remember, right there for my first pick. And for my last pick, go. So you don't want to pick up here because this is already machined, okay? So don't pick up here. You want to pick the last line would be, I guess, well, let me do that one. It's not letting me do that one. So I'll pick right about here, okay? Okay, so now I've got a path all the way to there, okay? So it's going to try to machine all the way around all this stuff. Now it's probably going to give you it's going to hit a few places. And that's okay as long as it's not dragging. It just doesn't like it when the back of the tool hits the part, but it really will cut some of it off. So as long as it's not, you know, as long as it's just barely hitting it, which it should do that correctly, it should be fine. Okay, so we've got that done. Okay, so hit the check mark. Okay, now I've got to set this up. So that we want to do tool 1. The tool 1s we have here, make sure you pick the correct one, is a 55 degree, and it's this one right here, 55 degree T1212, okay? Probably, hopefully you got the same one. So the radius, that's how big a radius is on the little bitty tip of this thing, okay? Of the tool itself, all right? So that's what that R means. And it's 55 degree like we talked about earlier. So pick that one, right? Then change all these offsets and station numbers to 1 because it's not using 12, it's using 1. That's what our machine is for 1. This one is 3. If we're going the other way, the cutoff tool we'll be using a little bit is, where is the cutoff tool? I don't see any I like in there. We might have to go to the library to get one of the cutoff tools. Okay, so we've got that set up. We're going to use standard RPM. So go to inches per minute and RPM. And it says on the paperwork 2,000 RPM is what we're going to run. Feed rate is 6. When we go to the finish one, it'll be 4, okay? So remember, if your CNC class, how we slowed it down so it ended up being shinier, it spins the same speed and then it goes slower across here so it gets rid of those little bumps. Turn your coolant off. There's no coolant on our machine. And the actual code for coolant opens and shuts the door, so it's pretty bad if you got the coolant on when you run that, okay? I think that's it for this screen. Okay, now we go to quick parameters, okay? And in the rough step, our machine can't handle 100 thousandths, it handles 0.4, 40 thousandths. Remember CNC class? Stock to leave 10 thousandths or 5 thousandths, I don't care, either one, 10's fine. Might have to make 2 passes, but that's all right. Let's change it to, we'll just leave it at 1. It'll cut that much. If you want to make it shinier, you would change this to 5 thousandths, and on a finish cut, you cut 5 thousandths. Okay, but we're going to leave it at 10 because it's default. Turn the lead in, lead out off. Okay. I think that's it. Hit the OK button. Now it's probably going to crash a few times. Oh, look at that. They missed half the stuff. Looks like the quick ones isn't any good. All right, so we can't use the quick one. It missed all the dips in here. Well, the books one must have been simpler. So a good example of what not to do. All right, so let's go back over here, pick on the first one, hit the delete button. Get rid of it. We're not going to use that. Let's go back and do it the hard way. Okay, shift or just go over here to the turning tab and pick rough. You could right click and pick rough too. Okay, do the same thing again. Go over here and pick the same chain. Careful, make sure you get the right one. Okay, we got the right chain. Okay, gonna hit the check mark. Okay, this is very, very similar. It did remember 201 right? No, it didn't. It's got the wrong one picked. So find one that is similar to that. The numbers might be different. The only thing that matters is it's 55 degrees and 313 and it's facing the right direction because it's got to go this way to cut that. Otherwise it'd clobber the back side of it. So it's renumbered, but so double click on that one, okay? I'm sorry, to click on that one, it goes in there. Change everything to 1 again, okay? Change your speed rates and all that over to inches per minute, RPM, okay? The feed rate is 6. Plunge rate is 6. RPM is 2,000. Okay, coolant is off. Just like last time, except there's one more thing to hit. This home position, I don't know if this is right or not. We might have to come back in and change this later, but for now it's okay. Okay, and then, all right, let's go over to roughing parameters. Let's work our way down. Depth of cut, change that from 100 thousandths to only do 40 thousandths at a time, not 4 thousandths, 40. Okay. Stock to leave is 10 thousandths, that's fine. That's how much we'll take off on our finish cut. Where it says lead in, lead out, unclick that, okay? And this is where we fix that problem where it skipped over everything. Go to plunge parameters and pick the second one over where we can kind of see it dipping in all the little dips. We want that, okay? And then where it says back clearance angle, change that to 0. That means it'll let it actually go in there all the way down to where it's basically almost hitting it, okay? No clearance, okay? But it's got a cutting surface back there, so it'll be fine. I think that's it on that. Let's try it again. This one's probably going to air out a few times. We'll probably have to hit OK. Just hit check mark. And it says tool collision with stock. That just means it ran into a little stock. Just hit check mark. It's all right. It's kind of hitting it as it's going a little bit on the back side of it. That's why it's saying that 100 times. So just keep hitting OK. I don't see anything on mine that's really dangerous. So you can kind of see, if you remember, most of you have had CNC class. So see, it skipped over the top of this, so we're going to have to hit it with the right side in a finish cut here and clean it up. But this should look familiar. You can see how it's doing 40 thousandths of the cut. Remember how we did that by hand in AutoCAD and how much fun that was? All right, so we've got that done. Now the finish cut's almost identical, except there's a few less buttons to hit. So we do this finish. Okay. And if you want to turn that tooling off so you don't have to look at it, it's Alt-T turns it off. Mine's not shutting off because I'm using VMware, but so I'm just going to ignore it, I guess. But Alt-T should shut it off. So now I'm going to pick the same exact one again. There's my beginning, okay, all the way up to my end here. Okay, and if the finish cut tool can't get in there, it won't get in there. You know, you can see what it's missing here. It's missing like 10 thousandths around there or more. Okay, it might take a couple passes, but check mark. And kind of the exact same stuff you do all over again. Inches, RPMs. This one goes to 4 though. The feed rate on the finish cut slows down so it gives you a nicer surface. Okay, so slow down to 4 feed rate, 4 inches per minute. RPM still the same at 2,000. Typically you could speed that up, but I think 2,000 is the max on that machine anyway. Turn coolant off, again, very important. The coolant gets turned off. Okay. I think that's it on that tab. Make sure you got the right tool, which you should turn that offset number back to 1. I was surprised that didn't stick. I might need to check my tool on the other one because the offset needs to be 1. Finish parameters, same as last time. 10 thousandths is fine. Turn lead in, lead out off. And lead in, lead out off. Hit the plunge parameters. Go to the second one again. Turn that back clearance back to 0 so you have a better chance of it being successful. Hit the OK button. You're leaving nothing left, which is what you want on a finish cut. Hit the OK button. And I can't believe it didn't air out, but it didn't. If it did, just hit OK. Now you can kind of see where it's cutting around. So there's a gray. So that tool could not get in here, and it automatically knew it could get in there. Okay, I think it probably could have done a better job on here, but it didn't. Okay, so now I'm going to try to do it from the other direction and do exactly the same thing, but go backwards. Okay, and it'll hopefully clean up all that stuff. Okay, so let's see what happens. All right, so now we go to another rough cut. Go backwards on it, so that we're going this way. So there's the first one. And the last one's over here on the very end. Okay, Okay, so I've got that picked. Okay, and I hit my check mark. And now I use the opposite edge tool. Still 55 degrees, still 313 radius. Just find the one that matches that. There it is. I got it. On mine it's T111. Yours might be a different number. So I'm gonna pick that. Change. This is tool number 3 on our machine. Okay, the right-handed tool is tool number 3. Okay. And then change all your speeds again to back to the inches per minute RPM. Our feed rate, make sure you're switching the dots on there too. Our feed rate is 6 because it's the rough cut. The plunge is 6. The RPM is 2,000. I think that's it on that one. All right, and then I'm going to go to roughing parameters, and I think it will remember some of this stuff the second time. Yeah, there's the 40,000, so I don't think we have to double check the plunge parameters. That looks good. So I think it's equal stepping, which means it won't necessarily use 40,000s. Like if the math works out that like the last one's 10 and all the other ones are 40, it'll divide them total and make them all the same, so it's less wear on the tool. That's what equal steps does. All right, hit check mark. Okay, it starts with the tool embedded in the stock. Starts outside. Okay, so if you zoom out here, it thinks this thing is hitting this. And it's really not. I've got plenty of room that would not hit because this thing's too big. So I hit OK there. Toolpath generation failed. Do you want to save operation? Yes. Okay. So what happened was it shows that I probably need a little line here for it to start with instead of way down here. Okay. So that's what it didn't like. So we're going to, on mine at least, since I have a rough edge here, what I could do is I could fill this part and start up there and rerun it, or I could just draw a little line on there, which that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to go to wireframe line. Maybe did some of yours work? Nobody's work? All right, I'm going to create a little line right here. So I went to wireframe, I picked line. I'm going to draw a line from there, just a little bitty line to get me started right there, okay? And then I'm going to pick another line because I don't think there's one going down here. Right here, going up. Try to, I guess going down till I hit that one. Not snapping on there. Okay. So I drew 2 lines there. I'm going to try it again. See if I can just change the geometry. It might let me. I'm going to geometry, chain, right click, rechain, and start it one more time. Here, start with. Wrong direction. Go here. It might not connect because the way that drew, it drew kind of funny there. It did not connect. Well, maybe if I start a little later spot instead of having it down here where it's embedded. So I'm going to start a little farther over on the toolpath because these all did pretty good on the first cut. So I'm not too worried about them. It didn't really look like real bad until some of these other ones later on. So I'm going to start the toolpath a little bit later and see if that fixes it. I'm going to cancel out of that, right click, rechain all again, and this time I'm going to try starting right here because I know it's going the other direction. Let's see, where would it be safe? Maybe right there on that one. So I'm going to pick that one for my start. Okay, the tool should be able to fit in here just fine. Now, it still might crash into the this part here, but I could actually change that so that it doesn't have a problem with it. And then I'm going to go over here to here again. Okay, now I've got that one in there. So it's going basically from there to there. Let's try that, see if it works. Check mark. And it worked, yay. Okay, so I just changed the starting location and it fixed it. I'm going to do a generate all. Modify the toolpath so it starts outside. Maybe it didn't work. Oh, didn't work. Okay, let me play with this a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to edit this tool so that it actually fits. It's actually not as big as it thinks it is here. So I picked the wrong one at 35 degrees. Let's try that again. This one here. Double click on that to go to the parameters of it, or the holder inserts. So the holder is way too big. So D is not 1.25, it's more like 0.5, and A is more like 0.5 as well. And it has to be 0.75 as a minimum, so 0.75. A is also going to be 0.75 in that case. Check mark. And change all my speeds again. I think that'll fix it. Feed rate is 2000. Off. Parameter should remember all them, hopefully. Yep. So it's still embedded in this. Okay, I had to start my tool way farther down here for it to work because it kept thinking it was going to be taking out the chuck there over here. So that's the only way I was able to get it to work. So I'm going to finish that off too now with finish cut. About the same spot over here somewhere. Going to right over here. Finish that. Using the same tool, check mark. Okay, it's just saying it's wrapping, it's going, so we're going to ignore that warning. Okay, so now it all did work, hopefully. All right, so the last thing you want to do is cut it off. Let's go ahead and save it at this point before we finish it up. Okay, so we want to cut it off. We also want to create a G code before we finish this up too to call it done. So the G code, or the cut it off, would be drop it down, and there's a cutoff tool. So I'm going to pick cutoff tool, select a place to cut it off. So I don't think it'll find one long here unless I draw a line. So I'm just going to cut mine off right at this point. Right there, okay? And the tool that we have in ours is 1/8 of an inch thick, narrow, so it's that one. And that's tool number 7. Okay, and the inches in RPM, it says in the notes there that 2000 RPM again, and it's only going 2 feet per minute. Okay, turn the coolant off again. Okay, and then we go to cut parameters, turn the lead and lead off, off. I don't think there's anything else to change in there. Hit OK, and it'll slice it off. All right, so if we want to run this to see how it looks, select all operations, go to your video, slow it down a little bit. You can actually see it, cut 40 thousandths at a time. And it should cut it off, and it should look nice when it's done, hopefully. Getting a few humps in there. And then it sliced it off so it disappeared. Okay. It wasn't perfect, but it was pretty close. And you could tweak it more if you really wanted to, but I think it's pretty close right there. So we're going to go with that. All right, then you want to generate your G code. Make sure you use the right post. So I'm going to try to finish the video here. So G code, select post. Yes. Make sure you right click and save that thing. We didn't save it yet. I'm just going to save this post file to my U drive. Save link as U. So lets me pick where it's going to be anyway and put it in this class. Okay, and then I go find it from here. There's the PLT 3000, that's the one I want. Check mark and generate a G code. And that is the project. Sorry guys, a little bit extra work.